CBT News celebrates 12 years of delivering news, content, coaching, and analysis to the retail automotive community. You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. As 2024 quickly comes to a close, I think we're all looking ahead to predictions for the automotive industry in 2025. One of the predictions we all pay close attention to are the ones released by Jonathan Smoke, chief economist at Cox Automotive, just released this past week. So today I'm joined by frequent executive guest, Jade Terreberry, who's the Senior Director of Strategic Planning from Autotrader and Kelley Blue Book, to not only go over what those 5 predictions were, but to discuss the critical actions dealers need to take as a result of those predictions to ensure increased success and profitability in the coming year. I've heard the 5 predictions, and I'd love to get Jade's take on all of these as we deep dive into each one of them. So Jade, thank you so much for joining me once again on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Sure. So the first one, let's talk about, which has to do with the election. We've all been talking about this crazy election that we've seen, and it had to do with so many things that might come out of it, right? So there's depending on what side of the aisle you're on, I guess, right?
Yes.
But can you share what the post-election prediction is and the impact that'll have in the industry?
You got it. So the really quick hit is get off the fence, because consumers are getting off the fence. Mm-hmm. There was just this tremendous amount of pent-up demand. People were waiting to see. And regardless of which way it went, this isn't a political discussion, right, but so many things about administration policy have such a direct impact on our industry.
That's for sure.
Gas prices, rates, how much money's in people's pockets. Consumer sentiment is a huge one. And the good news on the consumer sentiment front is post-election years are historically tracked very high in consumer sentiment. So lots of good news, but I think that dealers have to get off the fence too. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks hit the pause button prior to the election. They're spending all their time fielding political phone calls and texts and mail and just waiting to see what came out of uncertainty that they were feeling. And so I think the big takeaways are consumers are coming out of the woodwork and starting to buy cars. We've seen month over month increases, week over week increases the last few weeks. And so dealers that are ready for that, pricing their cars properly, talking to consumers about incentives, are really gonna win. And so I would just say, look back at what you were doing the few months before and make sure, know your market share. Use data to make sure that you are being competitive, because customers are buying right now. There's no question about it. Let's discuss the second prediction around a vehicle affordability, something you and I have talked about several times over the past year. I've personally spoken 100 times on this show about this in 2024. Everybody is concerned about it, the dealers, the OEMs, the consumers, probably most importantly. But talk to us about that and what dealers need to focus on, as well as OEMs for that matter. Yeah, affordability, it's a real thing. Consumers are having these kitchen table conversations around what they can afford. They're looking at their insurance rates that have gone through the roof, up 25 to 35% year over the year over the last handful of years. And with all of the vehicles that have been totaled out from the recent natural disasters and hurricanes, the 2 million mark, we believe insurance rates are going to continue to go up. And so affordability matters, but we just released our first evolving consumer study. And what we find is that consumers' definition of affordability is starting to change a little bit. They're starting to focus less on sticker price and more on value. In fact, 62% of consumers told us that they will indulge in a vehicle that enhances their quality of life. And so, I think that dealers have to really be in the mindset. They are the consultant, or their sales team that are interacting directly with consumers are helping those consumers make a decision. And a vehicle is almost like a lifestyle decision now, with so many features out there. And so, I think it's important that the staff and the folks that are helping consumers move down the path to purchase, that they're realizing that affordability is a real thing, but they're also armed and ready to ask for the sale, to find the deal in every deal. And on the affordability front, tax season is right around the corner, and make sure that if somebody can't buy today because they don't have $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 down payment that they need, make sure your staff are saying to them, earmark that tax return, that tax refund for your next vehicle purchase. And so, I think that there are a lot of good things happening with the economy. I would also make sure that with all of the incentives that are in the marketplace right now, that dealership staff are armed to create urgency around that. We don't know how many of those incentives are going to continue well beyond the new year. And so consumers have heard for years that the best time of the year to buy a car is the last 2 weeks of the year.
No question about it.
And so make sure your staff is reminding them that they've heard that before. And that means get off the fence, buy right now, and recognize that anybody who is showing up on a dealership lot is there to buy. There aren't a lot of shoppers in the marketplace right now. There are buyers.
I agree. So let's talk about this third prediction, used cars. We've spoken about that, both new and used vehicles. Looking ahead to 2025, what are your predictions for new, used, and wholesale vehicles, and how should dealers best prepare for the market trends you foresee?
Yes, so DJ Smoky Smoke, Jonathan, who gave us these predictions, has some really good news on this one. It's a good news story on all three fronts. So new, used, CPO, and we'll even add wholesale to that. It's going to be a good year. We believe that inventory levels are going to stabilize a little bit on the new car side. We started to see some age, but those couple million vehicles totaled out, the incentives coming into the marketplace, consumers getting off the fence post-election, all of those things have compounded where we kind of see a redo for manufacturers where they're starting to see some of those numbers come back. So we believe inventory levels are going to remain steady. We do believe that the off-lease shortages, as that continues for the next 5 to 6 quarters, we're going to see less CPO inventory. So I would encourage dealers. You have a segment of consumers that really like to buy certified pre-owned. And so take a look at your CPO practices. Make sure that you're meeting the needs there. And then there are a lot more used cars available. Consumers were frustrated post-pandemic with the shortage of new, having to buy used when they had always been new car buyers. And so the really short part of that inventory story is that we believe that 2025 will be the best new car year since 2019. It's going to be the best used car year since 2021.
Wow, that's great.
And we believe all of those Manheim indexes are going to stay steady or go up. So good news for car people.
That, dealers? That's fantastic.
Great news.
That's just what they want to hear.
You got it.
So the next topic is one that we've spoken a lot about as well, and we've seen the predictions of this change over the course of the last couple of years. All of the OEMs were very excited about it. Now I'm speaking, of course, of EVs. Talk to us about that. I mean, the electric vehicles have been trending for a topic for some time now, and there's been a lot of concern from dealers. The consumers aren't showing up the way that OEMs thought they would show up for their products. They were, the OEMs are very excited about EVs, thought that it would be, 90% of the vehicles out there, but we just haven't seen that. So what say you about this?
So I say the journey will continue. That EV journey and EV push is going to continue. It goes back to what we've said about a lot of topics together over the last few months, but there's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
We wish there was,
That's right. EVs are not for everybody, but the consumers who want to buy EVs are buying EVs. And so, we were calling 2024 kind of the year of more, and that's going to continue into 2025. More make model choices for consumers, more hybrids, and more education, more infrastructure, more awareness, probably continued tax incentives and reasons to buy these. You're going to see manufacturers loading up some lease incentives and lease programs on EVs. So there are going to be more consumers than I think dealers think that are ready to do this. And so my advice to dealers on that front is be a champion, recognize that it's not one size fits all. It's not for everybody, but consumers that want to buy EV want to. In fact, I was at the Modern Retailing Conference a couple of weeks ago, Pasha's conference down in Florida. And Mike, president of NADA, stood up and he said, China is looking at breaking into the U.S. market. And China's done a lot of things to really drive adoption over the years of EVs on their home front, from registration and policy and inexpensive ways to get into EVs. But they want to break into our market. And so, this is the time, as all of our manufacturers are thinking, and as we post-election think about new administration policies. But we believe that the journey continues and there will continue to be more of all things EV. And so we just got to get comfortable with it and arm our teams to not be out there playing around trying to figure out how to plug something in. They're supposed to be the experts, so we got to get them comfortable with it.
I've spoken to a number of dealers that have said that they've had to really make it that their staff, their sales staff and managers are driving EVs. Because if somebody comes into the dealership and they ask about an EV, if that salesperson isn't well versed enough, then they steer them to the car, to the ICE vehicle that they feel most comfortable with, because they themselves are probably driving an ICE vehicle. And so we're less than 10% of salespeople today are actually driving an EV. And that's an issue that's got to change, right?
It is. Well, and I hear dealership staff also saying, if somebody comes in on an EV, we just hand it over to James. Or, they have one sales guy that drives one that can answer all the questions and knows the trim. And funny enough, a lot of the technology that exists in these EV units are technologies that consumers are also really looking for, but your product specialists need to be product specialists. They can't be, having each other take each other's star tests for them, and these things happen. These things happen in the automotive business.
That happened when I was selling cars.
Yeah, but our staff have to be the experts, regardless
of the consumers relying on that.
Even if it's only 1 out of 10 consumers that want to do it. That's right. You want to sell that 1 out of 10.
That's right. And it's probably more than 1
out
of 10.
It is. It definitely is.
And all of this boils down to what dealers hope is satisfying the customer, right? So let's kind of jump right into that, which is the 5th and final prediction. If you can weigh in on the final prediction around the increased consumer satisfaction, especially working at Autotrader and Kelley Blue Book. I know your companies are very consumer focused for sure. So as the consumer satisfaction continues to rise, what are some of the key factors driving the trend? And how can dealers enhance their business and marketing strategies to maintain high levels of customer
small spoiler alert, Consumer Buyer Journey Study, the brand new one, coming out the week of January 6th. And it's the good news story also. Consumer satisfaction is up, especially on new car, which is awesome. And it all comes down to offering omni-channel experiences. Dealers are starting to give consumers the ability to pick up exactly where they left off with each action that they take, regardless of where they are in the automotive ecosystem, to pick up from the last place, whether it was on an OEM website or a lender website or a dealership website or Autotrader or a third-party marketplace. And so this connected automotive ecosystem is finally giving consumers the experience that they want. Pick up where you left off, regardless of where you started or stopped, and regardless of what you do in-store versus online, or any mix of the two. Give them the control, because they feel like now that they're buying the car that they want, as opposed to being sold or pushed into something. And it's showing in profitability for dealers. It's showing in back-end F&I profitability when consumers are in control and educated, and they see that AI is powering and understanding their driving habits and their use case of their vehicle, and it's enhancing their quality of life, like we talked about earlier. All of these pieces come together, and it makes for really happy customers. So dealers that are adopting tools like, you're going to see at NADA, I hope everybody is booking their demos right now. But Cox has invested so much over the last few years in our Retail 360 ecosystem, which is just coming to life. And that is the toolkit that gives the consumer the experience they want, and the dealership the experience and tools that they need to be able to offer that experience, where they're communicating back and forth in real time. The consumer has the same experience, whether they're sitting in the store, in the showroom, in a product specialist office, or whether they're sitting at home on their couch, or anywhere in between. And that's why these consumers are happy, which means they are buying cars. And if you're the one making them happy, they're going to be buying it from you.
And it's as simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, it really is. There's no question. As we tie up our conversation, I think we all need to try to go back and re-watch this or rewind it, take some notes on it, dealers that are listening, which you can always do right here at cbtnews.com. But I'd like to ask you one last question here, Jade. And what's your biggest piece of advice for leaders and organizations, given the importance of staying informed on how dealers can leverage insights from economic forecasts, such as those given by Jonathan Smoke, and try to stay ahead of the game in 2025?
Yeah, well, I can never give just one, and I usually give you some silly acronym,
no problem.
Which of course I'm going to do. My acronym for 2025, we've talked about it before, is ROCK, R-O-C-K. If you want to rock in 2025, it's ROI measurement, it's operational efficiency, consumer experience, but the big takeaway is keep what you have, keep your staff, keep your customers, and keep your market share. And so retain the people that you have working for you. Make sure that the consumers that are touching your store you're giving them the very best experience. Make a deal in every deal. It's like I said, there aren't a lot of shoppers in the marketplace right now. The days of being proud of an in-store walk-in close rate of 25 or 35% are over. I mean, I see stores closing 60 to 80% of walk-in traffic. Consumers that are showing up at a dealership, they're coming to buy a car.
They're coming to buy.
And so again,
I agree.
Have your salespeople, they need to know how to talk about EVs. They need to know every product line in your set of inventory. They need to have all of that data right at their fingertips. You need to be priced competitively, or they're never going to show up at the lot to give you that swing at bat.
And to your point, consumers are doing so much more online, and which allows them to, when they come into the dealership, they got the title to their trade, they got their checkbook for their down payment, they got the extra set of keys that they've been holding on their trade-in. These people are stone cold buyers, right?
They are.
If they meet a salesperson that is well equipped at a dealership that is well equipped, that has the right technology to take care of them, it's going to equate to a sale, right? It's just that easy. Customers no longer say, well, let's go out and shop dealerships.
We're going to go drive 18 cars.
Right.
It just doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
No.
It doesn't happen. And now they might, keep you honest right here in the showroom by saying, well, let's check out that car.
Right.
Therein lies the need for a great online experience at your dealership, right?
And the right data to justify your price and to show them the competitive set and to validate their trade-in offer that you're giving them to them. Building that trust, connecting them to you, using data to close the deal, and keeping them attached to your dealership and your brand for life.
These are definitely incredible insights, actions, and examples that you've shared. Really appreciate it. Jade Terreberry, Senior Director of Strategic Development at Autotrader and Kelley Blue Book with Cox Automotive. That is a company that you're going to want to put on your short list. And when you go to NADA this year, if you're not going to NADA this year, you can play back this video. But you should be going to NADA this year. And if you do, make sure that you stop by Cox Automotive. And I'm sure Jade's going to be there.
Yes. And if you're not going to NADA, we are going to be taking the Unjaded podcast series on the road as village reporters. So we'll be interviewing you, Jim.
Fantastic.
We ask everybody to stop by the booth. We're going to bring the energy and the excitement and the deals and everything from the NADA show floor right to the entire automotive industry.
So I'm going to have some competition out there reporting, right?
Hey, we're family. That's right. You're part of the team.
That's right. No, I look forward to it. It's going to be a good time. And you guys at Cox Automotive, the whole village is always just buzzing. Everyone, it seems like it's really like the Cox Automotive /NADA conference.
It's exciting. Well, and for so many years, it felt like to our dealers that we were kind of a house of brands. And this Retail 360 ecosystem that everybody's going to see at NADA, like the Band-Aid has been ripped off. And the power of how we have built Cox Automotive, this multi-billion-dollar CDP that drives the most efficiency, the most ROI for our clients. It is here. It is upon us. So we're excited.
Dealers, get out and see it for yourself and listen to all of the great features. Do yourself a favor, do your dealership a favor, do your bottom line a favor. This is where you want to be. So again, Jade, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.